Okay, well, it's 6:30, so why don't we call to order Monday, December 16th, Waitsfield Selectboard. Do we have any additions, removals, or adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, I think,
Okay.
as I said in my email, I wanted to put consideration of that Tri-Town letter regarding the health center and the action on the two bids for repaving the East Warren Road.
Okay. Do you want the Tri-Town letter just to be in the, or the consent agenda?
It would be happy to be consent agenda.
Okay, so we can add that to the consent agenda. We're gonna remove the 12-2 minutes from the consent agenda because we don't have them yet. And how about we do paving right around when we do budget?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
There's a couple things to talk about with
Okay.
regard to that.
That all goes together.
And we should add a discussion on the Hoffman dogs.
Okay. We all good with that?
Sounds good.
Okay, is there anybody here for the public forum? Nope. Okay, liquor license renewal, we're supposed to have our friends here from Scraggon Row, I don't see anybody. So I guess if they show up, we'll do it, otherwise, it's gonna be like 20 lashes with a wet noodle. Okay. So the next thing up then is appointing Caitlin Ennis from Facein to fill the unexpired library trustee term. This was because the other Facein rep, I think it's Jean lays it pretty well out in the letter. Sally Reesner's stepping down and her term doesn't expire until March 2026. So they've suggested that we appoint Caitlin Ennis. And then what would happen is that this would just go until town meeting day, and then there would be an election on the ballot at that time to fill out the rest of the term, which would end in 2026. And I guess I had thought maybe it would be for Facein to do, since it's a Facein citizen and representative, but apparently Waitsfield votes for all the representatives on the library board, whether they're from Facein or from Waitsfield, and Facein does not vote. They just financially,
Recommend.
they can recommend, but they
recommend
just,
and
they have to get on our ballot, and we vote them in.
Got it.
So, and
And
they
it-
financially support the library.
Is there specific representation for each town, like in their
I think it's
bylaws?
3-2, yeah,
Okay,
like on a lot of boards.
Got it.
So that's 60-40 split,
yeah, okay.
so.
I'd make a motion to appoint Caitlin Ennis to the vacant seat on the Jocelyn Memorial Library Board of Trustees through March 2025.
I'd second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, they're good to go. Great. Conservation Commission,
They're gonna outnumber us.
Make room. Here they come.
are they all coming?
I don't know.
I don't compete with the fire department on that.
Hello. We got Kurt and Bruno from
Hey, Bruno.
Hey,
We heard the pipes rattling.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Okay.
we did.
I was
Thank you.
mostly kidding, but I,
All right, 2026 budget
Yeah,
great.
and updates.
We'll do opening comments, and now that's the money for it.
Right.
yeah, just a couple things. One, we wanted to share with you the recommendation for the budget for the Conservation Commission funds. And also review the process that the Conservation Commission uses to monitor the reserve funds. So,
Great, thank you, Kurt.
and we're lucky to have a very skilled treasurer on the Conservation Commission who's a real financial pro. Bruno.
He's so kind.
Awesome.
First of all, thank you very much, everyone. And first thing, thank you very much for all the work you do for us, because it's really a lot of work that you put into this. And I'm really grateful for all the support you give us at the commission. So, as a my role as a treasurer here at the commission, one thing I do is I establish a relationship with all the treasurers. And we had a number of treasurers over the years, past 5 years. So the reason I do that, because I always want to make sure I have a line of communication for the person that I need to talk to, the number guy. This year request is that we come back to you. We'd like to ask you for $5,000 like we requested last year for the general fund. $20,000 for the conservation fund number 14, like we requested last year. And then $10,000 for the invasive species and emerald ash board. So that's a request for this coming year, for 2025, 2026. Any question, comments for us, anything I can?
Right, and those are the, I guess, the same requests for the past 2 years, so we kind of kept things flat, recognizing the fiscal challenges that you face, and we also feel it's an adequate amount
Yeah.
to do our work, so.
is that different than the amount that was listed in the minutes
Right.
that you guys
Um,
Yes.
So wait, the conservation fund, is that the restroom recreation
Mhm.
conservation fund?
Yeah.
Okay, because that, I believe last year was 20,000?
20,000,
Right,
yes.
Mhm.
And if you see our minutes, there was a mistake on our minutes. It
Okay.
I
said
was gonna say that.
40,000.
I was
That's
gonna
what
say,
I
you
didn't
just said you wanted the same amount. and
No,
I-
no, no, no.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
It was a mistake, in fact. We didn't get a chance even to correct them.
Okay,
they're being
So they'll
corrected
be corrected
downstairs
downstairs
now.
right now.
okay,
As we speak.
Just to, as we speak, you're
As we
right.
speak.
So it's the same as last year. So the 5
20.
general, 20 for the conservation fund,
Mhm.
and then 10 for the
10.
invasive species. Same amount.
Okay.
And just for clarity, the transportation path reserve, that does not run through you guys, that's through the
That's through the-
rec district.
or the path or
The,
Path,
the,
'cause that's why,
the study that they're doing?
no,
or-
there's a transportation path reserve that we allocated 10,000 to in 24. And I was just, initially when I read the 40 in your minutes, and I was trying to do the math of how you get
Oh,
there, I
okay.
assumed it included that 10,
No, no.
but it sounds like that's
Yeah.
We're not
managed
familiar
by.
with the transportation fund.
Okay.
Sorry.
sounds
Great.
like you've moved to support the active transportation corridors study of
Study.
feasibility.
Right,
Yes,
mhm, that's
that's
true.
different.
Mhm.
Right, but we've already supported it,
Yep.
so we're good, we're on the same
Right,
page.
okay.
Are there, you guys have any possible conservation projects on the horizon?
Well, we're working on the Scrub Mountain project, so we engaged Sinuosity for the design for the second phase of the study. As you recall, we did the first phase, and we built the trails. Now we're doing the second phase study, and then we're thinking about building the trails, but it's something that we do in stages. So Sinuosity is in the process of finalizing the trails, and they're going to present it to us for the next phase. And anything else, Chris, that I missed?
Well, we'll also likely be applying for grant funds for that work, if we're eligible. But we're tracking down those options. But I guess the other,
What's your timeline looking for that?
But the grant is supposed to be due within the next.
yeah, we had to submit a pre-application, which we've done. And I think if that's accepted, an application would due, I think, early next year. But there
Okay.
was two funds, two grant options we are looking at. The other projects, one are the Farley Park work and the fairgrounds property and the Wu Ledges. You know, we're developing a new management plan for both of those properties. I think all the assessments will be done by January. We've had the forest assessment, bird habitat, ecological, and trails inventory. Except for the forest inventory, those are all done. So next year, we'll be looking at, making sense of that and developing recommendations for you for the management plan for that property, for the forested part of that property.
And then how long the Lake Champlain Basin grant, that'll run through next summer,
That runs through next year,
next calendar year?
next calendar,
it'll-
yes.
It's
Unless
two
we
more.
get an extension, they approved the paperwork late, so there was one aspect of that, which is the gravel decontamination study that we weren't able to get going this year. So we might ask for an extension for that, but everything else is on schedule with that grant.
Okay.
That was not weed
Yeah, it's
adjacent?
It's not weed adjacent. Well, yes. It's not weed and adjacent. We had an inventory done of other invasive species in the valley. And we've been working hard to restore the areas where knotweed has been managed, so.
I went out on one of the days. They did a lot of work.
They did.
What's the status of emerald ash borer right now do we know?
We haven't seen it in Waitsfield yet, but I think we
I
will.
think Montpelier Berry is as close as it's got to
I
us
think they've
yet.
seen it in Stowe. They've confirmed it in
Yeah.
Stowe.
I think
It's
I've
around
seen
us.
it, it's
I
in
mean, it's here.
Northfield too, I believe.
North-
Because the invasive species budget, if I understand correctly, has been largely allocated towards knotweed adjacent projects.
Correct,
Right, okay.
75%.
Well,
70,
The
yeah,
reserve,
we had I think understanding with the select board that of that 10,000, 2,500 was for emerald ash borer and 7,500 for the Japanese knotweed.
Just so that you know, ash logs are commanding a premium price right now. They're bringing big money. So if we get good ash logs and it's living tree, now might be the time.
Stay away from mine.
Well, our inventory said we have 2,000 of them within our right-of-ways.
yeah.
If they were lumber quality, and I think a lot of them are, that's some real money. You might want to look into the price of ash logs these days.
Yeah, raise some funds.
Mm.
Okay.
Don't
Any,
get your chainsaw just yet.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're saying this to the Conservation Commission.
well,
Yeah.
Why, do you have some ash in front of your property?
Yes, I do, hands off.
There's some beautiful ash and wool edges. Beautiful, giant.
It isn't worth anything once the ash borer
yeah,
gets
gets
in.
into it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so unfortunately. All right, does anybody else have questions for the Conservation Commission while they're here? Any more updates?
Thank you for what you folks do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy
Record
holidays,
time.
everyone.
Man, that was record lightning quick.
You're gonna finish by 8 tonight, aren't you? To watch the soccer game?
Yeah, I know, when I,
We're gonna be
God.
out of here
when I saw
7:55.
that, but we actually get it at our house, I was like, ooh,
Have a good night, everyone.
gotta get out of
Thanks,
here.
everyone.
Okay. And that obviously we'll just take up as part of the budget, we don't need to act on it right now. So then the next part, designate a liaison to the State Ethics Commission. I don't know, it might have made it into the packet,
I think it
the
It did.
email.
did.
Yeah.
The thing that was confusing about it
Yeah.
was that it seems like it's only,
Yeah, wait a minute.
the requirement goes into effect until January 1st of 2025, so are we appointing somebody for,
A week.
Yeah,
Yeah, right?
I wondered if that was a
Typo.
typo or
Typo.
something. If it was meant to say it goes into effect on
Does not, or
January.
does not go into effect.
I expect it goes into
Until-
effect January 1.
That's what I would
Yeah.
expect.
Yeah.
that would make a lot more
Um,
sense,
yeah.
but.
So, I think this would be, I mean, we have employees, obviously. I think normally this would be the town administrator. I don't know that. If we would prefer to have one of our employees or a select board member temporarily do it as a member of the legislative body.
Sounds like typically it would be the TA, but
Yeah,
I mean, does it make sense for anybody else in the town office? Or is there like potential conflict and stuff with other?
Well, I mean, they say that it can be an employee or a member of the legislative body, so it could be an employee. My hesitation has more to do with the fact that they're already helping with covering the
Extra.
TA
right.
extra
role
duties?
and sort of
The other
adding an
shortage.
additional, yeah. Is it possible to appoint somebody different once we have a
Oh,
TA
I
in
would-
place?
I would think it
Yeah.
is, yes. But the statewide municipal code of ethics goes into effect 1/1/25. So,
So what's the requirements? What's the, how much time is this gonna involve?
I don't know. I mean, I think whoever it is gonna get emails. I don't know how much time it would actually involve.
Yeah, I didn't read the legislation, I just opened it up, and it does go into effect January 1.
Yeah.
Boy, they have a long list of people who could be on it. Advisory Budget Committee, Auditor, Building Inspector, Cemetery Commissioner, Clerk, Collector of Taxes, Department Heads,
I
Planning
mean,
Commission.
I'm willing to do it short term.
Janitor?
I think so. If you're willing, I'd make the motion.
Okay,
Second,
We appoint Christine.
okay.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Do you wanna do Hoffman Dogs now? And then we'll go to budget and paving?
Well,
Sure.
Sure.
the deadline is fast approaching,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's probably time that we send them a letter and notify them that they need to surrender their dogs as of the first business day of 2025. And I would make that an emotion.
I'm not sure who was, I don't think everybody was copied, but we did get an inquiry from Sally Von Trapp asking what's the deal on the dogs and reminding us that they're dangerous
Mhm.
and that she wasn't happy that we extended it in the first place.
And I've heard that comment from a couple of other
Yeah.
of the
Yeah, fair
neighbors
enough.
also.
Yep.
Um,
So I would second the motion that we send them a letter that date's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I could,
I'll read it in full if you wish. I move that our attorney be instructed to draft a letter for our signatures, which, once upon signed, will be delivered by the town constable to the Hoffmans, stating that they are to surrender their 2 dogs to the Valley Animal Hospital on the first business day of 2025.
Which is Wednesday, January 1st, or
the second would be the first
Thursday?
business day.
Okay, Thursday,
So-
January 2nd.
I guess we need to second the motion before we discuss it, if
I
somebody
would-
wants to second.
A suggestion on the motion, if that's appropriate.
Well, in terms of amending it?
Yes.
Okay,
Um,
so we need technically you need a second motion
Okay.
before you can discuss it or amend it, right?
Thank you.
So,
So I can,
so do you, somebody can second it.
I can
and then-
second.
All right, then go ahead.
And that would only be to, I think, per the terms of the agreement, to either remove the dogs from the town or, as you said, turn them over. Because I think that is the agreement, right? To
Right.
remove the dogs or turn them over.
Right.
And have seen them as I often do in the driveway. Last conversation we had about the dogs in November sometime pre Thanksgiving was that they are definitely aware of the deadline, and they have their house on the market. They have a temporary option to kind of remove the dogs if
remove
they
them
haven't themselves moved yet. They're
Mhm.
obviously under no obligation to move themselves, but they seem like they're aware and they're working on it.
Right. Yeah, and we could, I mean, rather than have our attorney draft a letter, we could also ask him to reach out to their attorney to remind them of the impending deadline.
I
And
think they
that-
need to be notified in writing that they have a date.
Well, they signed a legal agreement. And I also, my other question then is, what happens when they get to the Valley Animal Hospital?
According to what was passed, they'd be
They're still in town.
humanely put down.
From what I remember, that was not, while euthanizing them was what we said we would do in the letter, I don't believe that the Valley Animal Hospital agreed that they would be the point for that, if I remember correctly.
So what do you desire to do?
Well, we're gonna have to find a place that would do it, or that's why I would say, let's just confirm, we can confirm through attorneys that that's the plan. And if the dogs aren't removed on the 31st, then we could move forward with a letter.
I think they need to have a date to surrender the dogs.
I'm wondering, rather than doing this on the second, is giving them a heads up, a warning that it's coming up, and, to date, you haven't taken action. You've got 2 more weeks, or 1 week, or whatever it would be.
That would be the intent of this letter.
Or, yeah.
Right. They also did sign a settlement agreement. I'm sure they're aware.
So it sounds like the intention is a reminder, and it's a matter of method for conveying that, whether it's communicating to town lawyer and having the lawyer do that communication, or drafting a letter. Is that accurate?
I think so, with the addition of, at least, I'm not sure if there was full consensus, but saying sooner rather than later. Like, let's not wait till the 30th. Give them a heads up now.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm confident they're aware. I don't really have a strong preference personally, whether it's direct letter to them or to their attorney.
I think
Or
if we've
just
gotten attorneys involved, my inclination would be to say do it through an attorney.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem doing it through an attorney, but I think it's, given the date and the time of year, I just don't know. I mean, for one, telling attorney on the 17th to draw a letter up that's gonna get there before the 31st.
Yeah, we should have done it last month. You're right.
Yeah. And I do know that I think our attorney is in contact with them from time to time. That's why I'm saying, can you just, I would think a more informal means of doing it would be fine as well, or would be sufficient.
I am not of that opinion.
I think, given the public concern of, us being on record as, here's a reminder of what we've all agreed to, would be a good idea. Again, whether that's maybe just, given the time of year, that's more practical for us to do rather than trying to get an attorney to do it. We could have them look at it if we wanted, just to make sure it's in.
For us to
Compliance.
draft the letter, okay.
We have a
I'd be good
legal,
with that.
we have a settlement, I don't understand why we need a letter when we have a settlement agreement that was signed by both parties, saying, here's are the terms of the settlement.
Until we give a date and time and place for this action to happen, I don't think they would voluntarily bring the dogs.
Well, it says if the Hoffmans do not move from the town of Waitsfield by December 31st, 2024, they shall be required to rehome the dogs by or before December 31st, 2024, or else they're in breach of the agreement. So their signature's on that. Our signature's on that. I can't imagine they've forgotten.
No, I think, the judge said, I agree that because there's public concern about it, just making sure that they know that we haven't forgotten either. And that we're watching, we're paying attention, that we're serious about it would be a good thing.
Yeah, it could be, rather than legally just restating what's already in the agreement, is reaching out to say, what are your plans? This is coming down in a, by the time they get the letter, it'll be roughly a week out. Do you have a plan to rehome the dogs? Per the terms of the agreement or something to that effect. Because, there was a question earlier, is Valley Animal Hospital, I don't know if they said no, or we just haven't asked if they would actually euthanize the dogs. I sincerely hope it never comes to that. I think we all do.
Same, yeah.
But it would be helpful to me anyway to know, and they mentioned to me that they did have a plan, even if they hadn't found a new home, that they had a plan to remove the dogs from the town to a breeder that had some, like a temporary housing for the dogs. So maybe just asking them to confirm that. If that is the plan, then we don't have to worry as much about Valley Animal Hospital and who's going to do what.
So where are we?
I don't know. Well, this is the motion that's on the table, and I don't think it's been amended.
Do we want to amend it to remove the attorney and we'll write a letter ourselves?
Yeah, and not wait until the second, not wait until after the new year, but do
Get
it.
it out in the next few days?
Yeah.
I would amend my motion to delete the attorney writing the letter and we write it ourselves.
Is there a reason to have the letter delivered by the constable?
Gravitas?
Yeah, make sure it's there. We have had instances in the past where people refuse to sign for a letter or pick up a letter. Curious enough, also concerning dogs.
Kinda hate to send the constable to this knock on the door.
Yeah, right?
For his own safety.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna send Bariah an email.
Excuse me.
So my recommended amendment was just that they present a letter stating that they either remove the dogs from the town or surrender them to the Valley Animal Hospital. So I think there's two amendments, and yours to drop the our attorney just had moved that the select board be instructed to draft a letter.
Okay, and who on the select board is drafting that?
Pretty simple, 2 lines.
Okay, you're the man then, 'cause it ain't me.
I'll look at it after you're done, just to get another set of eyes.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay. All right. You amended it, was the amendment seconded?
I'd second it.
Okay.
Actually, Larissa has to be okay with the amendment, because she seconded it. the
Right,
original.
initially, and I am okay with it.
Well, you have to, can you, do you have to be,
Yeah,
even if the amendment's approved?
well, usually it's just the
Is it like,
person who makes the motion and the amendment and the second are the only two people who amend,
oh, okay,
unless you vote it down and then do a new motion, but
then
let's
you
not
do
go
a
there.
motion, but you're not supposed to vote against, if you make the motion, you're not supposed to vote against it. All right,
But you can if you want to
Right.
have consideration later.
right, but you can have a friendly amendment too. Okay. So Chach made a motion to amend. Does everybody, so we need to approve the amendment, that we would not have the attorney, Fred will draft the letter, and it would state that the dogs need to be removed or surrendered. And are we dropping the town constable, or no? Or do we want
You're
that?
certified with the constable, I don't, either way.
Yeah, either way.
There's some assurance, my thought was, if the constable delivers it, there's some assurance that they really got it.
Mhm,
It's not languishing in the post office. That was my thought.
mhm. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
all right.
fine. All right, so all those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Then all those in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Very good. On to the budget and paving then. And I had it up. Is that it? No. I can put it up. I can put the, had it up before. Oh, there it is.
What are you looking for?
I had the,
The draft budget.
Oh,
so that I can put the draft budget up.
okay.
I'm not sharing, but I don't think there's anybody. So we have budget up on the board, so it's.
Do you want us to start with the paving?
Sure,
Yeah, as I said in the email, we have two proposals from Pike and Whitcomb. They're both the big paving companies
Mm-hmm.
in the area. Charlie and Josh were fine with either of the groups. They've done work for the town in the past. Most recently Whitcomb did, but Pike's clearly the low bidder, and that was their recommendation that we go with them. And it appears as though we have cash in the bank and a grant to cover it.
mhm,
And as I mentioned, and this will be something that comes back to us, Charlie mentioned that once we go ahead and pick the vendor, that he wanted to reach out to him and see if we could look at the slow road as well, since they're gonna be in town and operating. And you know, it's not a decision that we have to make tonight. But
And is that, from his vantage point, because we'd allocated more funds than these quotes? Or?
yeah, we would have enough to pay for it, and I mean, when he mentioned it, it's like 3 days before I went into Shaw's and thought, man, this is a mess.
Yeah, I do wonder how that fits in with the plan that we've had though.
Yeah, I know, I
I
was
think we
wondering
need,
about that.
I think we need a little bit more information
Yeah.
regarding that.
But we don't, that's not the decision for tonight. We
Right.
can Go ahead with
It's
these
just
ones.
To be clear, the slow road starts at the former bank, makes the corner, and stops where it tees into
I know. Yeah,
the other access.
and that
Does not-
too, but that's
that-
not town road.
Yeah, that's in horrible shape, but
They did a bunch of work.
Is that?
I think they feel like they did a bunch of work fairly recently.
I don't
On the
think that-
Shaw's parking
On the
lot.
Shaw's part and on the shopping center parking
Yeah,
lot.
summer
not
they
the
redid.
driveway. Did they do that?
Well,
Maybe
the
some of
shopping
it.
center, but not
Shopping
the
center, but
main
not the main road.
access point. So, questions on the two quotes, clearly, the, Pike is the low bidder, but there were, many more, comments and exclusions on the Whitcomb quote, and I wanna make sure that Charlie and team
It's
are
apples to apples.
confirming those details one way or another with Pike.
Yeah, like,
For example, like traffic control and
Control.
flagging included in the Whitcomb bid, silent on that in the Pike bid, so those, I don't think there's $100,000 of those type of
Yeah.
items, but it's still worth asking, and they do reference in the Pike bid a construction contract, so maybe that stuff is called out in more detail in the construction contract. I just wanna make sure Charlie and team have kind of looked at that, and
Why don't we, yeah.
for Christine, kind of make sure we're kind of apples to apples.
right.
Yeah.
And I think we could approve the motion, say, as long as they're comparable.
Mhm.
And then if they're not, that,
Bring back the revised.
or the,
Yeah.
the lower price bid based on the elements would be the one that we would accept.
Yeah.
That's generally what we do.
So we could approve Pike subject to
Confirmation that,
confirmation of, additional scope or
that it's,
and exclusions or something like that.
Right.
I would hope that the request for a bid spelled out
yeah,
what they needed.
Yeah,
Maybe we should confirm it.
it just caught my attention because one has
Yeah.
lots of comments and exclusions, the other has hardly any.
yeah.
Is that a motion?
Sure, I could make that motion to approve the Pike Industries bid submitted for the Bridge Street
East
to East
Warren
Warren
Road, yeah.
Road. Cause it's really, Bridge Street to East Warren Road paving. Subject to or conditioned upon confirmation of scope of work and exclusions by the road foreman and crew.
Second?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That's that, and budget. Budget.
Just quick on that, I was
Or-
really glad in a way that we waited, to do that whole thing, just do it in one shot rather than the original plan was break it out over 3 years.
Yeah,
It's always a pain and disruptive, and it'd be nice to just get the whole thing done and not have people complaining for 3 years, just for
although
one.
it did involve some work over the past 3 summers,
Yeah,
to be honest, but
Little
not
skin
as
coat type.
extensive. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there was some culvert work this summer and some
Mhm.
culvert work the previous summer, and this will be all paving.
Yeah.
So,
I have been asked by Warren residents a lot lately when it's gonna be done.
Well, they just did theirs,
They
right,
did
last
theirs.
summer, so there's a
Floating.
clear
So, yeah.
distinction.
yeah, so you can totally.
Hate to slow
like, see
down.
the line. Okay.
So
Wanna go
I
through
sat
it?
down with Charlie and Josh. They had gone through the budget and put together this draft as a starting point. It's obviously the issue that we haven't talked about for all staff are salaries and benefits, so that still needs to be done, but this was largely based on what they considered their needs and where they are this year. I actually didn't have the 2024 actuals in front of me. I just raises a couple of questions looking back at some of those, but they were comfortable with these numbers for the most part. I think they were comfortable with these numbers.
Mhm.
Just, how do you wanna do it? Wanna walk through changes? Cause it's a lot of level funding.
Mhm.
Right.
Maybe, yeah, walk through changes, I think is,
I mean, on the top, just fuels and material costs going up. It's
Yeah.
pretty straightforward with the Bolton pit closing.
Mhm.
No, we're not there yet, it's down below, but, just fuels and materials going up. Nothing big there. The one big increase, they need a set of new tires for the backhoe. They did wanna add a new line item for tire chains,
Mhm.
which doesn't exist. I did send Josh an email asking him where we've been paying for tire chains out of,
Mhm.
somewhere else that might have an offset, but I haven't heard back. But there's nothing in the first section under operations and repairs that's really that eye-popping, and
Mhm.
mostly it's all related to just price increases
Mhm.
and some needs like tires and blades.
I was surprised, and maybe I shouldn't be because it's been in the budget every year, but the uniform services and uniform materials, you know, $6,000 for 4 people, it just seems like felt like a lot. Unless I'm missing something that's included in there.
well, it was $9,000.
We
Yeah.
spent that much at one point. You know, that's another thing to go back. I was surprised, like I said, I didn't have the 24 actuals, that we had spent $9,000.
Yeah.
Initially, Josh's comment was, we only have 3,500 under uniforms, we need 4. And his actuals from the treasurer didn't have the uniform services line item on it, or the materials line item on it, so he was asking for 4, and this is total budgeting 6. Could be a little bit more than they had asked for, but he did say, we're gonna bring in another 4th road crew person, there's gonna be a whole nother outfit. And I
It
think
was
that's what ran up
6.
the cost last time.
Yeah, it was 6 this year,
Yeah,
although
it was.
FY '23 was 6812, and FY '24 was 5490, and those are actuals. And we budgeted.
No, the FY '24 was 89.
Yes, I didn't read,
We budgeted 54.
okay, but I'm looking here, FY '23 actual,
Yeah.
681220, FY '22, so, yes,
Oh, I don't have
I'm
it
looking
right
at my
there.
old, but the
Yeah.
FY '24 actual was 8980, 81. I know that I don't know, I know that they recently switched providers. I remember Annie talking about that. So I don't know if that had anything to do with the change in the price down or what.
Yeah, I wondered if anything else got rolled in there. That's like, if it's a 4-person crew, that's $600 a person for boots and coveralls and whatever else. I don't really know the full extent of what they do, but it's not worth spending a ton of time on. It just jumped out as, is there something else in there?
Do they get sent out to be cleaned, or is that something, okay.
They have a service provider.
And do you know what's left in contract labor, kind of the contract services? There's 12 grand. I know that came down significantly before, once we got the Ventrac and started
Yeah.
plowing and mowing, but what's left in there?
Some things that they've hired Goodman to do, like grade and sand the road up to the telephone switching station up there, which is a town road that the town trucks don't do well. Some of the other kind of class 4 road work
Okay.
that, you know, private contractors with smaller machines are better able to do. That's my understanding, but I'm not
Okay.
I have not become an expert on the
Yeah, or
Road-
sometimes I
budget
think, yeah,
techniques yet.
sometimes I think the amount of stuff that needs to be done, it's like they can't get to it all
Yeah.
either. So they,
Well, and like, it's unusual, but flood recovery, they did a lot of contract work.
yeah,
The culvert replacement for the old
Center
Old
Basin
Center Basin
Road.
Road was contracted out.
Mhm.
And there might have been some contract labor too
There
on
was
Center Basin
on
Road.
Bronk Road,
Yeah, yeah, Charlie did some stuff,
yeah, and I think on
Yeah, there-
North Road.
yeah.
I've seen all the invoices, a few $1,000s. But that's flood recovery, this is just standard stuff, it's
Yeah.
mostly
Yeah.
small projects that they don't get to. But I went ahead and took out all the mowing and stuff like that, that was line items before that we didn't budget last
Yeah.
year.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and that's, oh yeah, you took it out all the way.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
didn't
you
take
could,
all the
you could
lines
see
out,
it,
but I-
if you
yeah.
look in the last year's town report,
Yeah.
those line items were there
Right.
for the mowing and plowing, but.
Yeah. I'm assuming like the salt budget, they budget conservatively, not knowing what the winter's gonna be like. Like in 2024, we spent conservatively last month. I guess that's just luck of the draw and the type
Yeah.
of winter we have.
Yeah, last year we really didn't have a lot of snow until February.
Right. Mhm. Does that make sense that we spent nothing on chloride last year? There was 16 budget, but the actual says 0. This would be fiscal year 2024 actual. Because is that dust control, is that what we use
Yeah.
chloride for?
Yes.
I'm wondering if we had,
You might just not have gotten the number yet.
Okay.
I mean, these are things we can check before we finalize.
Okay.
So down below, I mentioned sand is a problem for a lot of towns, transportation costs have gone up. The one big thing under materials is what we do with our crushed gravel the crusher reserve that we created last year.
Mhm.
So they had suggested putting 15,000 in the budget. We have the reserve and we're not gonna do it until next year, so we might wanna and we had done the reserve because it cost about $30,000, and we were doing it every 3 years, so instead of having a $30,000 expense and then 0, we just try to even it out over
Yeah.
years. So I'm actually wondering if we're not gonna do it till next year, if we can put a little bit less in the reserves, like 10,
I thought we just started the reserve.
we just did last year,
Right, with 10,
well, with 15.
15.
I think it costs about
It has
30 when
cost
we
about
actually do it.
30. Yeah, in '24, it cost 27,000 538.
Okay. But that would, that,
So we've got half the money for that for next year.
If,
if it's
Yeah.
flat, that
Yeah.
It's flat,
seems like
yeah.
a lot of other stuff has gone up.
But anyhow,
but-
that's a reserve discussion and not a budget.
Right,
discussion.
we'd wanna fund something to that reserve,
Yeah.
at least I would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
But it
the,
wouldn't
yeah.
show
the
up
point.
here in their annual budget,
Was
it would show up
to-
in the reserve
Yep.
planning. Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
So what is is there a next step with them? Getting the sense Charlie doesn't like to come in anymore, which is okay.
That's fine. So I think normally what we do is, I mean,
Josh and Charlie have both looked at this.
Yeah,
And signed
and-
off on it.
right, and signed off on it. So this is like step one of some of the budget stuff. And then we do, like, next time around, the budget that we look at would be more complete in terms of salaries and as we hear from different groups. So like we heard from the Conservation Commission, the
And if-
Basin,
Yeah, and we should see if we have any questions and we can get
Yeah.
answers before we do another draft. So I can check with Steve about the chloride and why we didn't spend any money.
yeah,
And
and
Josh.
that's the
would-
point, we have to discuss wages too.
right. Well, I think we had, they're gonna have to be updated based on the changes that we've already made, and I think we've discussed what first go-around would look like, and we just need to know the impact. So like the next time we look at the budget, we're probably gonna have like, insurance costs and salaries. And then we would normally get like, Jen as town clerk, if she has any updates that she needs to make to the budget.
So
She'd
I
let us know.
told Jen, I was gonna try to schedule some time this week
Okay.
to sit down with her to talk about the town office budget.
And would Steve be able to help with the salaries? Just based on, current wages and full staffing, what that would add
Yeah.
up to.
I mean, I think we need to talk about what our
Yeah,
increases need to be.
but just understanding like, what's our baseline, say for the
Yeah.
road crew,
Yeah.
Yeah, that
salaries
needs,
and overtime based on four people for the full year. Hopefully we'll have that position filled by next June, July.
yeah, okay.
I think they'd like it filled by January.
I'm confident.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Or yesterday.
Actually, Josh, he did mention he's been he's been recruiting, and one of the reasons
Okay.
there's a little bump in training is talk to somebody who he believes is qualified and has the right skills, but doesn't have a CDL.
Mhm.
I wanted to provide that.
Okay.
Something that's always amused me is they have steel pole saw, chainsaw. Steel is spelled incorrectly. It's S-T-I-H-L.
Oh, is it a still?
Yeah.
Oh.
Steel.
They put it
Okay.
to use on the covered bridge.
Yes, they
Mhm.
did. Yes, they did. And I noticed it was sharp too.
Yeah.
Someone there knows how to sharpen a chainsaw. No surprise.
So any other questions that we should look into before we come back?
I think we just have to do the salaries, you have the health insurance information, right?
Yep.
And then
Well,
just-
I know what the costs are. I need to sit down with either Jen or Steve to talk about who's got what.
Right.
Who's
What that's actually gonna
family
look
and
like.
single and people who are opting out, so.
Mhm.
Okay.
Should discuss sidewalk maintenance. What
Oh,
does
yeah,
that
so
indicate?
they said, we're not gonna do anything with the sidewalks. Last year, the discussion was they ought to be able to replace a couple of slabs if they need to. Is some damage, but I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, we don't really have a sidewalk maintenance plan. We do have a sidewalk reserve.
Yeah, and if we have a sidewalk reserve, why do we, like,
Why
Why
do
do
we
we
wanna
have-
put something in the budget?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, right, like, but we should start to think about some sort of plan and regular maintenance, cause it's, after having spent all that money, it needs a little bit more upkeep
Yeah.
and attention.
Yeah.
Do we, I think, it's not in this budget, but it was in your memo or notes or something about, vehicles and equipment. That seemed like there was more.
Oh, yeah, you had the note, Brian,
Well, I
about-
just kind of went through what was the capital projects, capital budget, and what they were looking for. I'm not sure, the one that I was a little confused about is the loader. I'm not sure if that's been ordered or not, but it's in process. We have bids for a lot of the equipment.
Mhm.
And we're in, I think, pretty good shape with the reserves, with the exception maybe of the dump truck.
A new dump truck. Was that scheduled?
Everything here was, scheduled for 26.
Okay. Loader. Yep, there's a dump truck at
And the loader.
126. Chipper, hydraulic press. And then the pickup truck, which is FY 27.
So that's the one that I mentioned that,
They wanna move up.
yeah, and he said that taking on the summer maintenance, the mowing, there's a lot more shuttling around town
Yeah.
than there was, and if we have a fourth person doing that, it's kind of a pain for them.
Right, yeah, cause they've been putting it behind a dump truck that
Yeah.
would normally not be used.
So what he suggested was that we, rather than trade out the existing truck, we just get a new one and have two.
Right. So. Okay. All right, is that budget? We good? Let me just check. Actually, so we have somebody here. Are you from Scranton Row by any chance? 802-377? Hi.
Hi. So sorry, folks. I've been broken down on the Sarksboro side of the mountain. This is Nathan from Scranton Row.
All right.
I'm an hour late for this. I'm quite sorry.
Okay. Better late than never. So, so you have the liquor license renewal, because it's going into your second year, your first renewal, correct? This is, we usually ask
Correct.
people to come to the board. We found a short kind of stopgap. So technically, I think your liquor license has been renewed, but we did ask you to check back in. And if anybody on the board had any questions, they could ask you those questions or let you know of concerns, or do we have
Yep.
none?
So I take it the planning for the outdoor patio and the roundup, that ended up not really being an issue this past year, because that didn't happen, but I'm assuming the same sort of plan is in place for your space if it does happen again next year in the summer?
We have the patio open and we have that licensed. The thing with the roundup, they gave first right of refusal for the roundup to Tay and is it Emma or Emily from Twisted Halo. So as of right now, we have nothing to do with the roundup until Tay or until Twisted Halo says that they don't want to do it.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right then. Are we good with the liquor license?
Yeah, I move that we approve it.
Okay, second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, you're all set then.
Folks, very sorry. Thank you so much.
All right,
You're
thank
not,
you.
you're not stranded, are you? You're okay, aren't you?
Yeah, no, fine. It's just car problem. Like my car has a problem with the oil leak, so I'm just waiting to get back from Starksboro.
Okay.
All right,
No action.
all right.
All right.
Best of
Thanks.
luck.
Thanks, Nathan.
Okay, yeah, it's not a good state for no car. All right then, select board roundtable.
Thanks for reaching out to Nicole. She had just sent me the July bridge report saying, is this the most recent one? And no mention of the site visit. So what I'm talking about is Larissa and I went to a FEMA meeting with our third FEMA liaison since the flood.
Oh my gosh.
And they did say she's looking into whether the bridge would be an eligible expense. It's, you know, it seemed as though they had said no earlier, at least the state had said no.
I was gonna say, the state said no,
The
but,
feds, she's looking into it from her boss, and there might be a site visit. And we should talk about the portal, and JD said he's got a lot of tasks in there that I don't know what he's talking about, so.
okay.
It's not easy.
Yeah, no, and sometimes unfortunately you just have to keep asking
Yeah.
until you get the answer that you want. So,
And then also, the other thing that has been a little bit of a frustration is we seem to be, insurance for the covered bridge seems to be fine, but they say they're gonna get back to me and they don't, so I wait a couple days and then contact them.
Passive does, or,
Passive, yeah, she said she might need more detail for the proposal. We gave them a little bit more the second time. They might need a breakdown of materials.
but I guess if passive isn't the one paying the claim, why does I mean, I know passive probably wants to have a handle on what the work is that's being done.
I think just they wanna confirm that it's legitimate cost, that they're fighting for, and they are going after the driver's insurance.
Okay,
But she said that they may, to not leave us hanging, if there's any kind of pushback from them, they may go ahead and pay and then try to recover the costs. And that's, she said, is what they get audited, and they wanna make sure that
Okay.
everything's legit.
that makes sense.
That's all I've got.
All right. I guess I have a question regarding storage over at the Wait House. I keep receiving comments regarding the canoes,
They still there?
and they're still there, yes?
Yes, and he's paying for them.
But does he understand he's not supposed to have them there, even if he's paying for them? It's not like you can just decide you wanna put storage there and that's okay.
Did he ever move them? Because I did tell him months ago that,
They're not in the dairy barn
oh,
section now, they're in a little,
So he moved them within the White House.
he said he's gonna move them off site.
He told you he was moving them off-site.
Yeah, this was a while ago.
So where, they're out back behind, they're outside, right?
they're in a little shed portion out back, yeah. And he's paying close to $900, over $900 rent now.
I feel like that's, he's paying rent, but then he's also paying fines. I think
He's
that
paying
those are
fine.
two,
Yeah,
those are two
and
different
I think he's
things.
taking advantage of the situation, saying, well, I'm paying for it, so it's okay, but the lease specifies that they're not supposed to have
Yep,
stuff there.
yep. It was my recommendation to the commission that he pay double for those 3 places that he's got storage. But the commission wrote his lease up as regular buck and a quarter per square foot.
He's supposed to be paying $1.25 per square foot for the office.
Right. So tell me, board, that we wanna charge him twice. That was my recommendation to
Well,
the commission.
whereas-
Or some other higher rent for those 3 extra areas.
Well, but I think the goal is not for those areas to be used for storage. And I think that if we're if we start including that in rent, then that is sort of tacit permission to continue doing that.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
And that, yes. As you and I talked some time ago, charge much extra and hope that he'd move it. But
Common areas, including the basement, are not storage areas. As such, they are to be kept clear of all items and materials at all times. In the event of common areas being occupied by a lessor's personal effects, the landlord reserves the right to charge a fine equivalent to $1.50 per square foot of space occupied per month until such time as the lessor's items are removed. So, at the very least, you should be paying $1.50 a square foot.
no problem with that. Just
I
tell me,
think- I think
give me
maybe there
guidance
needs to
so
be
I
an
can go back
additional
to it.
enforcement mechanism for
Give
basically
me-
like we reserve the right to liquidate
Yeah,
the.
to tell him that we're
um,
gonna terminate his lease.
Okay, tell me clearly what you, because
We-
I'm really on
This
his,
isn't
I
a
agree with it.
Yeah, no, this isn't a situation where he can just choose to store stuff on site,
Mm-hmm,
long-term,
mm-hmm,
and think that paying a fine
Mhm.
allows him to do that.
mm-hmm,
Our preference and what we want, and the reason why we agreed to that in the lease, is we don't want tenants storing stuff on site.
okay.
So,
We should tell him to remove those stuff.
yes, and
Okay.
Brian's saying he told him that he was going to
I'm good
remove
with
them.
And he moved them out of the barn.
Right, but he told you he was moving them off-site.
I think he did for a while.
He moved them onto his carrier, his trailer, and then back in. So I'm good with this.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Okay,
This,
I think maybe in future versions of the lease, we may need to specify that, you know, people who continue to do that may be considered in breach of their lease.
yeah,
okay.
yeah, I mean,
I imagine we'll
Mm-hmm.
modify the lease next year too.
yeah, to clarify that, but his lease entitles him to the office space, the parking area, not,
Okay,
right? He can park, the office entrance, and co-use of the conference room and kitchen.
so we need to tell him to remove
There are plenty of storage units
units.
available.
Yep.
And
No, I'm good with this.
yeah,
Okay,
I'm good with this. I
the
just
resources
need it
exist.
to be clear from all five of us.
okay, yeah, I'm not hearing any objections. Okay.
Okay.
Then the other question I had is, our meeting schedule. So, looking at our calendar, normally, I think we plan to meet like every Monday in January until we have a budget. It is for Monday, January.
So it would start on the 6th.
If that's what we wanna do. Town, first day to post warnings and notices is January 23rd, and the last day is February 2nd. I'm some people are saying that you can approve the warning before you post it. I always thought you had to approve the warning in that timeline and post it at the same time.
Well, you don't envision us approving the warning before that time?
Before the 23rd?
Yeah.
We've never done it that way. So
Yeah.
my understanding is that the warning has to be approved within that window and then posted. I've heard otherwise, that you can approve it in advance and post it.
What I'm saying is, I can't imagine we're gonna be ready to approve it in advance, if we
Yeah.
wanted to.
Right, so I would probably plan looking at the calendar. Even sometimes, well, I wouldn't be here on the 27th, but like, it would make sense to definitely plan to meet on the 27th, and we might wanna just set aside those first, all four of them. And then like end up, we might cancel like the 20th or something like that.
That's what we did last year. We
Okay.
just planned for all and we ended up canceling one.
During the
Okay.
normally scheduled
Yes.
time? Okay.
Yeah.
And then, okay. And then in all likelihood, we'd meet the normal schedule in February. So the second and fourth. But sometimes we end up canceling the fourth Monday in February because we meet the night before town meeting day for
Yep.
prep. Okay. Okay, that's all I had. Did anybody have anything else for roundtable?
I don't know if this counts as roundtable, but at some point, it would be great to know sort of what timeline folks are hoping to get preliminary interviews for town admin candidates started, since we're going into the holidays and budget season and things like that. So we've got a couple, and I think it's probably worth doing it sooner rather than later if we can, but I also I recognize that this is a sort of busy season.
But we are in much need.
Yes.
So that would mean this week, essentially,
Big,
next week's I think Monday's the 23rd, that feels not great for them or us, probably.
I'm flexible, we don't
Yeah.
have any travel plans or just out of that usual deal.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the week, I might be a little busy, but
Yeah, I mean, it might be Zoom.
with at least one of them it will be.
Mm-hmm.
And do we want to try to get as many of us who are available there rather than trying to do it in two stages? I would prefer the former. I sort of left us room to basically not guarantee that we would all five of us be there, since I wasn't sure what folks' availability was.
I think it's easier if we can get more people there.
Are you saying a block of time for?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was saying when we initially discussed doing hiring, we had sort of a preliminary interview with a couple of folks, and then based on how that went, we brought in more people. But I think for the sake of expedience, it would be worth getting as many of us who are available there, just to try to get somebody hired.
Yeah. So at this point, that would be Thursday or something of this week?
Yeah, I think probably Thursday or Friday. So my
Yeah.
question to you is what your availability is.
Despite what I just said, Thursday's really not good for me.
Noted. All right.
But Friday is.
Okay.
if we did Friday, I might Zoom in rather than,
And later in the day is better for you, Christine?
Generally, yeah.
All right, so I'll see if I can line up as many as possible on Friday.
Okay.
We'll let you know. The ad, I think, is gonna be running in the Valley Reporter and Stowe Reporter through the 9th. And what's
I
the
wouldn't,
pace?
the Valley Reporter does us a good job, but I'd consider, since we haven't got anybody yet, Front Porch Forum also.
Well, yeah, that was gonna be my next step, was I was planning to post an abbreviated sort of call for applications.
We probably would have to pay for it,
I don't know, Jen posts stuff.
does she?
Yeah,
Will it-
I don't, you might have to. But who
If they
knows?
ask me to pay for it,
Yeah,
I'll figure it out, but I don't think the town, I mean, there's, yeah, I'm gonna be doing this as a person rather than as a select board member, I think, basically encouraging
Mhm.
folks to take a look at the website.
There, that works, yeah.
And you did indeed.
So I looked into it and was trying to figure out if I should update what existed there or do something new. I get the sense from sort of talking to Christine earlier that it makes more sense to do something new. especially since, do you know what it means if something is flagged? If a posting is flagged? I don't know what that means either. So I will work on that. Probably creating a new posting.
Great.
The other question I had was how long we want to run the ad for road crew. Because that's just been in the Valley Reporter.
I don't know, just, I think,
Same
I should
timeline.
put that on, I have not posted that road crew ad to
VLCT.
I'll do that.
Okay.
If I have the most recent one, which I'm sure I do, because I said it looked good. Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
I think you're gonna wanna, yeah.
I'll just kind of continue to do it on the same
And
timeline
maybe,
for all of them.
we might wanna
and then-
take the other ones down, if you can, and then put a new one up on Indeed.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready for the consent agenda? Any objections to the consent agenda? Excellent. Do we need an executive session? Or are we good?
Everything hiring was administrative, so I don't think so.
Do we wanna have an executive session for personnel to discuss salary, or brief? I'd
Yeah,
like-
why don't we, since
Okay.
we've got plenty of time,
Okay,
we'll still be out early.
yeah.
So I would move that we go into executive session to address personnel issues.
Okay. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,